400 hours. That's how long it would take you to listen to every illegal conversation Sarah Martinez recorded in her boss's office. That's 10 work weeks of fraud, conspiracy, and threats. It started with a single USB recorder hidden in her blazer pocket and ended with 3 executives in federal prison. The FBI agent who reviewed the evidence called it the most comprehensive corporate fraud documentation he'd seen in 30 years. But Sarah wasn't an FBI plant. She wasn't a corporate spy. She was just a secretary who got tired of being asked to commit crimes. This $2.1 million lawsuit started the day she decided that prison orange wasn't her color. Listen, I know why you clicked on this video. You've been there. Maybe not exactly there, but close. You've had that boss who asks you to fudge numbers. Who tells you that's just how business works. Who makes you feel small and powerless when you question something that feels wrong. You clicked because you want to know if there's a way out that doesn't involve losing everything. You want to know if the little guy, or, in this case, the little woman can actually win against corporate corruption. Here's what this story will show you. The exact legal framework that transforms you from victim to victor. You'll learn when recording conversations can save your career and when it can land you in jail. You'll understand the 3 federal laws that make companies pay millions when they fire whistleblowers. And most importantly, you'll see proof real, documented proof that sometimes the universe delivers justice in spectacular fashion. This isn't just a revenge story. It's a masterclass in using the legal system as a weapon against those who think they're untouchable. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what Sarah knew, that sometimes the most powerful person in the company isn't the CEO, it's the secretary with her finger on the record button. In March 2011, Sarah Martinez walked into the offices of Pinnacle Financial Services for her first day of work. She was 34 years old, recently divorced, with 2 kids under 10. The receptionist position paid $42,000 a year, not a fortune, but enough to keep the lights on and food on the table. Sarah wasn't looking to change the world. She was looking for stability. And for 3 years, that's exactly what she got. She was the kind of employee every company dreams of. First one in, last one out. She remembered everyone's birthday, kept fresh coffee brewing, and never missed a day of work. When the executive secretary position opened up in 2014, her promotion was unanimous. The CEO himself, Richard Brennan, said, "Sarah's the kind of person you can trust with anything." He had no idea how wrong he was, or maybe how right. The promotion came with a raise to $65,000 and something more valuable, access. Sarah now sat outside the C-suite, handling calendars for the CEO, CFO, and COO. She scheduled their meetings, organized their files, and most importantly, she was present for conversations most employees never hear. At first, it was thrilling. She felt like she was part of something important. The executives would joke with her, include her in their lunch orders, even ask her opinion on office matters. "We're not just a company," Brennan would say at every all-hands meeting. "We're a family." But families, Sarah would learn, keep the darkest secrets. Year 4 started like any other. It was January 2015, and the company had just landed its biggest client, a government contractor worth $12 million annually. Champagne bottles were popped. Bonuses were promised. Sarah even got a congratulatory note from Brennan himself. Then came February 15th, a date Sarah would never forget. CFO Marcus Webb called her into his office. He was sweating, despite the air conditioning running full blast. "Sarah, I need a favor, a small one." He slid a contract across the desk. "This needs to be dated January 2nd, not today." Sarah looked at the document. It was a service agreement with their new client. "But, Mr. Webb, we didn't even know we had the client on January 2nd. I know. But look, there's a tax benefit if the contract started in the previous quarter. It's just paperwork. Nobody gets hurt. The client's already signed off on it." Sarah held the pen. Her hand wasn't shaking yet, that would come later. She thought about her kids, about the mortgage she'd just refinanced, about the promotion she'd worked 3 years to get. She signed it, changed the date, filed it away. That night, she couldn't sleep. Not because she felt guilty, not yet, but because she knew something had shifted. A line had been crossed. And in her experience, People who cross one line rarely stop there. She was right. By year 5, the requests weren't requests anymore. They were expectations. Sarah, create an invoice from this vendor. The vendor didn't exist. Sarah, tell the auditors you personally verified these receipts. She hadn't. Sarah, we need you to shred everything in the Morrison file. Tonight, the Morrison file contained evidence of kickbacks. Each time, the justification was the same. It's just paperwork. Everyone does this. You want to keep this job, don't you? That last one wasn't even subtle. The company was growing, at least on paper. They went from 50 employees to 200, moved to a gleaming office tower downtown. Brennan bought a Lamborghini and parked it in the spot marked CEO every morning like a trophy. But Sarah saw what others didn't. She saw the real books, the ones that didn't match what they showed investors. She saw the government contracts they won with falsified certifications. She saw the auditors being led into conference rooms full of fake documents she'd spent all night preparing. There was one particular night in October 2016. The auditors from PricewaterhouseCoopers had given them 24 hours notice. Sarah spent 14 hours straight creating an entire year's worth of backdated documentation. Her fingers cramped, her eyes burned. When she finally finished at 4 a.m., Webb patted her shoulder and said, "Good girl. The family takes care of its own." She sat in her car in the empty parking lot and cried. Not because she was tired, but because she realized she wasn't part of a family. She was part of a crime syndicate, and she was in too deep to just walk away. Or was she? November 2016. Sarah sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. She wasn't checking emails. She was researching something specific. Is it legal to record conversations in Tennessee? Tennessee, it turned out, was a one-party consent state. That meant only one person in a conversation needed to know it was being recorded. That one person could be her. She drove to Best Buy the next day, paid cash for a small digital recorder. Nothing fancy, $29.99, small enough to fit in a pocket, 32 gigabytes of storage. The teenager who rang her up didn't even look up from his phone. The first recording was December 1st, 2016. Her hands shook so badly she could barely press the button. The device sat in her blazer pocket, a small weight that felt like it might drag her through the floor. Brennan was discussing the quarterly reports. We need to move some numbers around. Make Q4 look stronger. Sarah, you'll handle the Excel sheets. Make sure the formulas auto-populate the way we discussed. The way they discussed meant adding 15% to every revenue line. She nodded, took notes, acted normal. The recording ran for 47 minutes. When she got home, she transferred it to an external hard drive she kept hidden behind her winter coats. Labeled it 2016-12-1 Quarterly Fraud MP3. The second recording was easier. The third, easier still. By month's end, she had 30 hours of evidence. By year's end, she had over 100. She developed a routine. Check battery every morning. Press record before entering any executive's office. Transfer files every evening. Back up to a second drive monthly. She became so smooth that even when Webb once asked, "What's that red light?" pointing at her pocket, she calmly pulled out her phone and said, "Just my fitness tracker. Reminds me to stand up every hour." He laughed. "You health nuts. Always tracking something. If only he knew." By year 11, 2022, Pinnacle Financial Services had a new CEO. Richard Brennan had retired to his beach house in Florida, replaced by Marcus Webb, the former CFO who'd asked Sarah to backdate that first document. The new CFO was a 30-year-old Harvard MBA named James Chen, who made Webb look ethical by comparison. The schemes weren't just bold now, they were desperate. The company was hemorrhaging money, but the books showed record profits. They were winning government contracts with certifications claiming they were a minority-owned business. Sarah, who was Hispanic, was listed as the 51% owner on paper. In reality, she owned nothing. "Just sign here," Chen would say, sliding document after document across her desk. "You're technically the owner, so we need your signature." "But I'm not the owner," she'd protest. "On paper, you are. That's all that matters." She signed and recorded Every single conversation. It was March 2022 when her 16-year-old son, Miguel, asked her a question that changed everything. They were having dinner takeout again because she'd been working until 8 p.m. "Mom, why do you look so tired all the time?" She started to give the usual answer about work being busy. But then he said something else. "My friend's mom works at a bank too. She doesn't look like you. You look scared." Scared. Her 16-year-old had seen what she'd been hiding for years. She wasn't just tired, she was terrified. Every day, she walked into an office where she committed federal crimes. Every night, she came home wondering if tomorrow would be the day the FBI knocked on her door. That night, after Miguel went to bed, Sarah sat with her laptop again. But this time, she wasn't researching recording laws. She was researching whistleblower protection. The end came faster than she expected. April 15th, 2022 tax day. Ironically, Chen called her into the conference room. Webb was there too, along with the company's external lawyer. 3 men in expensive suits, and her. "Sarah, we need you to sign something," Webb said. His usual fake warmth was gone. This was all business. The lawyer slid a document across the table, an affidavit. Sarah read it carefully, her years of fraudulent paperwork making her an expert at spotting lies. This one was spectacular. It stated that she, as the supposed majority owner of Pinnacle Financial Services, personally verified all financial statements submitted to the SEC for the past 5 years. That she confirmed all government contracts were obtained legally. That there were no irregularities in the company's books. It was a lie so comprehensive that signing it would make her personally liable for every crime the company had committed. "I need to think about it," she said. Chen laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Think about what? You sign it, or you're done here. This is a legal document. I should have my own lawyer review it." Webb leaned forward. "Sarah, we've been more than fair with you. 11 years of employment, above market salary, bonuses you didn't really earn. And this is how you repay us? With distrust? I just need time." "You have until Monday," Chen interrupted. "Sign it or clean out your desk." "And Sarah? If you're not with us, you're against us. And you don't want to be against us. We know where your kids go to school." The threat hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Sarah stood up, her legs surprisingly steady. Monday then, she walked out of the conference room, back to her desk, and did something she'd never done in 11 years. She left at 5 p.m. exactly. No staying late, no extra work. She had all weekend to make the biggest decision of her life. Except she'd already made it. Monday, April 18th, 2022, 8 a.m. Sarah walked into Pinnacle Financial Services for what she knew would be the last time. She'd spent the weekend backing up her recordings to 3 different drives, uploading them to a secure cloud service, and most importantly, researching lawyers. She knocked on Webb's door at 8:15, her usual time for delivering his morning coffee. Except this time, she wasn't carrying coffee. "Have you made your decision?" he asked, not even looking up from his computer. "I have. I'm not signing it." Now he looked up. "Excuse me? The affidavit. I'm not signing it. It's asking me to lie to federal investigators." Webb's face went through several colors, white, red, purple. "Get Chen in here, now." 5 minutes later, Sarah stood in front of both of them. Chen was practically vibrating with anger. "You're making a huge mistake," he said. "You have no idea who you're fucking with." "I'm not signing a fraudulent document," Sarah said simply. "Then you're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." "On what grounds?" Webb pulled out a folder. Of course they'd prepared for this. Poor performance, chronic lateness, failure to complete assigned tasks. It's all documented here. Sarah almost laughed. 11 years of perfect reviews, and they'd fabricated a paper trail in 1 weekend. "I see," was all she said. Security arrived within minutes, 2 guards she'd brought birthday cake to just last month. They looked embarrassed as they watched her pack her desk. A coffee mug, a picture of her kids, a small cactus she'd kept alive for 5 years. As they walked her out, Chen called out, "Oh, and Sarah, that NDA you signed when you were promoted? Still binding." You talk about anything that happened here, we'll sue you into oblivion. Your kids will be paying off the judgment. The elevator ride down felt like descending into a new life. Or maybe ascending from hell. Sarah wasn't sure which. In the parking garage, one of the security guards, an older man named Tom, whispered, "I'm sorry about this, Miss Martinez. You were always kind to us." "It's okay, Tom. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stand up for yourself." She drove straight from the parking garage to the law offices of Hartley and Associates, the 14th law firm she'd researched. The first 13 had either conflict of interest issues or didn't want to take on Pinnacle. But Lisa Hartley was different. Ex-Department of Justice, $300 million in settlements over her career. And most importantly, she hated corporate corruption with a passion that bordered on religious fervor. Sarah sat in the waiting room, her purse on her lap. Inside that purse was a small external hard drive containing 400 hours of recordings, 3 years of evidence, 11 years of secrets. When Hartley called her in, Sarah didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I was fired this morning for refusing to commit fraud. I have 400 hours of recorded conversations proving systematic criminal activity at Pinnacle Financial Services. I want to file a whistleblower complaint, and I want them to pay." Hartley leaned back in her chair. 400 hours? Of what, exactly? Sarah pulled out the drive. Such a small thing to hold so much power. Everything. Tax fraud, government contract fraud, investor fraud, threats, conspiracy. Should I continue? May I? Hartley gestured to the drive. Sarah handed it over. Hartley plugged it into her laptop, clicked on a random file from 2019. Webb's voice filled the office. "Just change the numbers. The auditors are idiots. They'll never catch it." Hartley clicked another from 2020. Chen this time. "If anyone asks, Sarah owns 51% of the company. Make sure all the paperwork reflects that." Another from 2021. "Brennan, before his retirement, the FBI sniffs around. We pin everything on Sarah. She signed the documents." Hartley closed the laptop, sat in silence for 30 seconds that felt like 30 years. Finally, she spoke. "Miss Martinez, this is the most comprehensive documentation of corporate fraud I've seen in 20 years of practice. We're not just talking about a wrongful termination suit. We're talking about criminal prosecution, federal investigation, RICO charges, potentially. I know, they'll come after you. Hard. They already have. I have nothing left to lose." Hartley smiled. It was the smile of a shark who just spotted a seal. "Oh, but you have everything to gain. Tennessee's whistleblower statute, federal Sarbanes-Oxley protections, Dodd-Frank rewards. You're looking at compensatory damages, punitive damages, and potentially a percentage of whatever the government recovers." "How much?" "Conservatively, low 7 figures. If the criminal case is as strong as these recordings suggest, much more." Sarah thought about her kids, about college tuition, about 11 years of sleeping pills and anxiety attacks, about every document she'd signed while hating herself. "When do we start?" "We already have." Now, let me break down exactly how Sarah's case worked, because understanding this could save your career or make you rich. First, let's talk about the laws that protected Sarah. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002 was passed after the Enron scandal. It specifically protects employees who report corporate fraud. If you're fired for refusing to commit fraud or for reporting it, the company has violated federal law, period. The Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 went even further. It established a bounty program. If you report fraud to the SEC and they recover money, you get between 10% and 30% of what they collect. Sarah's reports led to $8.7 million in recovered funds. Do the math. The False Claims Act is the oldest, dating back to the Civil War. It deals specifically with defrauding the government. Those fake minority-owned business certifications, each one was a separate violation worth up to $23,000 in penalties. Here's the key. Retaliation equals automatic violation. The moment Webb and Chen fired Sarah for refusing to sign that affidavit, they handed her a winning lottery ticket. They could claim poor performance all they wanted. Her recordings proved the real reason. This is where it gets tricky, and you need to pay attention. In one-party consent states 38 of them, you can legally record any conversation you're part of. Tennessee, where Sarah worked, is one of these states. She didn't need anyone's permission. But if you're in a two-party consent state, California, Florida, Illinois, and 9 others, everyone in the conversation must agree to be recorded. Recording without consent in these states isn't just inadmissible in court, it's a crime. Here's the loophole many don't know. If you're on a phone call between states, federal law applies, which is one-party consent. Also, there's often no expectation of privacy in common work areas. But offices with closed doors? That's different. Sarah was smart. She only recorded in Tennessee. She only recorded conversations she was part of. She never left a recorder running in an empty room. Every single hour of audio was legally obtained. Evidence has a hierarchy in court. Audio recordings are gold, video is platinum, emails are silver, written notes are bronze. Your memory alone, that's aluminum foil. Sarah had gold, 400 hours of it. But here's what made her case bulletproof. Contemporary evidence. She didn't record conversations and then sit on them. She labeled them immediately. She created a spreadsheet logging date, time, participants, and illegal acts discussed. When her lawyer needed proof of the April 2019 tax fraud, Sarah could pull file 2019, 4, 15, tax, fraud, web, Chen, MP3 in seconds. If you're documenting wrongdoing, real time is the only time. Courts are skeptical of evidence created after the fact, but a journal entry written the day something happened? That's credible. An email sent to yourself immediately after an illegal request? That's evidence. Here's a statistic that should shock no one. 97% of corporate whistleblower cases settle out of court. Why? Because companies know that audio recordings played for a jury are devastating. Imagine 12 average Americans listening to wealthy executives laughing about committing fraud. That's not a trial, it's an execution. Sarah's case followed the pattern. Pinnacle's lawyers initially offered $250,000 and a revised NDA. Hartley countered with $5 million. They went back and forth for 6 months. The final settlement, $2.1 million, paid in structured payments over 3 years. But here's the beautiful part about whistleblower law. NDAs cannot silence criminal evidence. Pinnacle could make Sarah promise not to disparage the company, but they couldn't stop her from handing those recordings to the FBI, which is exactly what she did. The criminal investigation took 18 months. The FBI assigned 3 full-time agents to the case. They had something prosecutors dream of: hundreds of hours of defendants explaining their crimes in their own voices. The arrests happened on a Tuesday morning in December 2023. The FBI had coordinated with local news stations. Someone had leaked the timing. Camera crews were waiting as agents led Webb out of his mansion in handcuffs. His wife stood in the doorway, crying. The footage ran on every local channel and half the national ones. Chen was arrested at the Pinnacle offices. He tried to run, actually tried to sprint past FBI agents in his $3,000 suit and Italian loafers. They caught him before he reached the elevator. The footage of him being tackled in the lobby was played repeatedly on social media. Someone set it to yakety sax. It went viral. Brennan was pulled off his boat in Florida. He'd been retired for a year, thought he was clear. The photo of him in handcuffs on his yacht named Just Rewards became infamous. The irony was lost on no one. The trial was almost anticlimactic. When prosecutors play a recording of you saying, "If the FBI comes knocking, we pin everything on Sarah," it's hard to claim innocence. When they play another of you explaining how to falsify government contracts, your defense attorney starts negotiating plea deals. Webb got 7 to 10 years in federal prison and a $2 million fine. The judge called him a corrupting influence who betrayed the trust of investors, the government, and his own employees. Chen got 5 to 7 years and a $1 million fine. During sentencing, he actually cried. The Harvard MBA who'd threatened Sarah's children sobbed like one himself. Brennan, despite being retired during the worst of it, got 3 to 5 years and a $500,000 fine. The judge noted that he'd created the culture that enabled the fraud. All 3 were permanently barred from serving as officers in any public company. Their assets were frozen. their reputations were destroyed. Pinnacle Financial Services filed for bankruptcy within a week of the arrests. 200 employees lost their jobs. The legitimate ones, who'd never known about the fraud, suffered for the crimes of their leaders. Sarah still feels guilty about that, but not too guilty. Sarah Martinez never went back to being a secretary. With $2.1 million in settlement money and the emotional exhaustion of 11 years of crime, she took a year off. She spent it in therapy, working through the trauma of being threatened, of being forced to choose between her ethics and her children's security. Her kids' college funds are now fully funded. Miguel is studying criminal justice inspired, he says, by his mother's courage. Her daughter, Sophia, is in pre-law. Someone needs to be the lawyer who helps the next Sarah Martinez, she says. Sarah herself became a compliance consultant. Companies hire her to review their practices, to spot the red flags before they become federal cases. She charges $500 an hour and has a waiting list 6 months long. Turns out, expertise in corporate fraud is valuable when you're on the right side of it. She speaks at conferences now. Whistleblowing, the nuclear option, is her most requested talk. She tells rooms full of executives about the secretary who destroyed a company with a $30 recorder. Most of them laugh nervously. Some take notes. The 3 executives are all in federal prison as of this recording. Webb is at the Federal Correctional Institution in Memphis. He works in the prison library, which other inmates find hilarious, the CFO who cooked books now organizing them. Chen is at a minimum security facility in Alabama. He teaches yoga to other inmates. The man who threatened children now leads meditation classes. The irony is thick enough to choke on. Brennan is in Florida, at a prison camp that's nicknamed Club Fed for its relatively comfortable conditions. Still, it's prison. No yacht, no beach house. No just rewards except the ones he earned. So, what can we learn from Sarah's story, beyond the obvious satisfaction of watching corporate criminals get their comeuppance? First, understand your rights. If you're being asked to commit crimes, you're not helpless. The law has teeth, but only if you know how to bite. Research your state's recording laws. Understand whistleblower protections. Know that retaliation for reporting fraud is itself a crime. Second, document everything. Sarah won because she had proof. Not suspicions, not accusations, proof. 400 hours of it. You don't need that much, but you need something. Save emails, screenshot texts, write contemporary notes. Build your case before you need it. Third, find the right lawyer. Sarah went to 14 firms before finding Hartley. The wrong lawyer will tell you to take the first settlement offer. The right lawyer will recognize the value of your evidence and fight for what you deserve. Don't stop until you find your Hartley. Fourth, understand the nuclear option. Whistleblowing isn't just about getting justice. It's about destroying the place that wronged you. Pinnacle Financial Services doesn't exist anymore. 200 innocent people lost their jobs. Sarah lives with that. Before you push the button, understand the blast radius. Fifth, protect yourself first. Sarah waited until she was safely out of the building before revealing her recordings. She didn't confront them while still employed. She didn't threaten to expose them. She quietly gathered evidence, then struck from a position of safety. Be smart. Be strategic. Be safe. Sarah Martinez spent 12 years being the perfect employee. She kept every secret, followed every order, and built her life around a company that saw her as expendable. But she learned something those executives never understood. The person you trust with your crimes is the person who holds your future in their hands. She got $2.1 million. They got 15 years combined in federal prison. She's sending her kids to college. They're learning to make license plates. She speaks at conferences about corporate ethics. They're banned from ever serving as corporate officers again. The morality tale here isn't subtle. When you ask someone to break the law for you, you're handing them a loaded weapon and hoping they never pull the trigger. Sarah pulled it 400 hours worth of times. If you're sitting at your desk right now, wondering if you should document that suspicious request from your boss, let me be clear. The law is on your side, but only if you know how to use it. One-party consent state, start recording. Two-party state, start writing everything down with dates and times. Because here's the truth, Those executives learned too late. The most dangerous person in any corrupt organization isn't the FBI agent investigating it. It's the employee with a conscience and a recording device. If this story taught you something about power, about justice, or just gave you satisfaction watching karma work overtime, hit that like button below. Drop a comment about what you would have done in Sarah's position. Would you have started recording sooner? Would you have quit instead? Would you have signed that final document? And subscribe to this channel because next week, we're covering the casino manager who discovered his boss was laundering money for the mob and wore a wire for the FBI for 6 months. That story involves a shootout, witness protection, and a plot twist you'll never see coming. Until then, remember, your integrity isn't for sale. But if someone tries to buy it anyway, make sure you're recording the transaction. This has been Casebound, and that was the story of the secretary who brought down a $50 million company with a $30 recorder. Justice isn't just blind. Sometimes it's listening.